For a long time he wasn't sleeping at all. He was, every time he slept, he was having nightmares about mass men, always about mass men.
People don't really investigate as much after an incident because there's always very interesting after effects, and so it proved with this because, you know, the trouble didn't remotely end there. You know, once she brought Fleadh to be shot, actually a whole pile of consequences emerged from that.
When we started making this film, our intention was to make a film that profiled the voices of people in Northern Ireland who hadn't been heard. So we didn't want anybody who had any sectarian connections. We didn't want to hear from politicians. We didn't want to hear from paramilitaries. We wanted to hear from ordinary people that had been caught in the crossfire.
The hardest thing about making the film was in a sense that we didn't want to be sympathetic towards Dolores, but we didn't want to be totally anti either. And it's kind of striking that balance in the film was quite hard to do. And it was a painstaking edit in that respect. And I think I come out of the film when I saw it feeling conflicted, and I think that's what I want an audience to feel, conflicted. She was conflicted, and I think the whole story is conflicted. It's a thought-provoking and a hard film in a sense that it goes to places the status quo wouldn't like you to go. It talks about, I remember there's a great quote, it doesn't take a monster to commit monstrous acts. They're done by human beings. And I'd like people to keep that in mind when they judge I, Dolores.
Yeah, I mean, we've had 20 years or more now of the peace process, and that's been really, really important for Northern Ireland. And lots of people have come together to try and make sure there is a lasting peace. I think despite all those efforts, it's quite fragile. I think that what's happening with Brexit and the way the British government just haven't thought about Northern Ireland and the borders is potentially very dangerous. So I think a film like the one we've made, which shows how lives can be utterly destroyed and how not just the lives of the people directly affected, but rippling out whole communities affected by violence. I think that the film we've made is very topical now, and I hope I'd love to show it to MPs at Westminster.
There's 20 years of Good Friday and there's still no government in the north. So did it work? I don't know. I mean, it stopped violence, but we're still in an impasse in a way, and there's a lot of stuff in the north that's not resolved and will take a long time to resolve. But I think by telling the stories of the north, by poking the bear as it were, that we get to some sort of truth about what happened.
There's a lot of nervousness in Northern Ireland at the moment. Ever since Brexit, people are very worried. There's still a lot of trauma that pervades the country. There's still a lot of pain, you know, and people haven't really had any sort of truth and reconciliation, and they can't move on and recover until that happens. So people are still holding all these stories inside them, and they need to be told. And, you know, Northern Ireland needs to be talked about, not just in Northern Ireland, but in Britain and in everywhere.
Well, I mean, I suppose in the main it has worked in lots of ways. A lot of people don't live with the same level of terror anymore. But I think maybe where it hasn't worked, it hasn't anticipated the psychological consequences as much. And that is a really important statistic that's in my film, that more people have died from suicide over the same amount of time than during the Troubles themselves.